Today we'll start the lesson by talking about stem cells. All cells start out as a stem cell, and at some point in its life it needs to mature. It needs to grow up, to become specialized to do a specific job. This is true for multicellular organisms like us. We have lots and lots of different types of cells that do lots and lots of different jobs. And they each have one specific job to do to keep the whole organism alive. But all of our cells start out as stem cells until they grow up and become different from one another. This process is called differentiation. Okay, that's a nice big fancy word for saying they become different. Okay, differentiation. So a stem cell is an undifferentiated cell. So it's kind of like a little baby cell. It hasn't grown up yet. A stem cell is a generalized cell, and it has all 100% of your DNA, and it has all these different organelles that we've been talking about. So it's very general, and it has everything. But then, at a point in its life, it'll grow up. It'll become differentiated. And then it might lose some of those organelles, or it might gain extra organelles, or it might change its shape to do its job. Now, something that's important about stem cells is that they have the ability to become all different types of cells, not just one cell type. A stem cell has the ability to become lots of different things. And that's really important to research and finding cures for diseases that we thought incurable. So when it's time for a stem cell to divide, there's a couple of different things that can happen. So the original stem cell could do what's called self-renewal, which means that the stem cell divides and both of the new cells become stem cells. Okay? So this is usually what happens after a catastrophic event and your body is low on stem cells, is the remaining stem cells will go through self-renewal and will just divide to make more stem cells so that you always have some stem cells in your body. A stem cell could divide and become two specialized cells or differentiated cells. Okay, so one stem cell could divide to make two specialized cells. Again, this is what happens during a catastrophic event. You've been injured and your body desperately needs to replace a bunch of a certain type of cell. Now, what's going to happen normally during your life is that these two are going to happen simultaneously. So one stem cell will divide, and when it does, one of the two cells will remain a stem cell, and the other one will become specialized. So you're creating one new stem cell and one specialized cell. That way your stem cell storage remains the same. You didn't lose one, but you're also creating new specialized cells to go and repair some damage. The reason why stem cells are so important is because your adult specialized cells, the ones that have already differentiated, they've already grown up and become specialized, well, when they do that, when they differentiate and they become specialized for a job, they lose the ability to reproduce. So your skin cells that are already being skin cells, they cannot make more skin cells. Your liver cells that are doing their job as your liver, they can't make more liver cells. Your heart cells can't make more heart cells. Your muscle cells can't make more muscle cells. They lose that ability when they become adult cells doing their job. Okay? But cells get damaged. Okay? You cut yourself and you killed a bunch of skin cells. You need more skin cells to replace it. And then also cells just get old and they die. They slough off. And you need to be able to replace them. But the neighboring cells can't do that. They can't make more to replace them. So then how do you do that? Your stem cells. All throughout your body, you have stem cell reservoirs where there's just these undifferentiated stem cells waiting to divide and become differentiated or specialized. So if you cut yourself, for example, and you need more skin cells, those neighboring skin cells who lost their neighbors and they're like, hey, my neighbors are gone, we have an injury here. they send a signal to your stem cell reservoir that says, hey, we need more skin cells up here pronto. And then your stem cells divide, and each one that divides into two. One of them stays a stem cell, so you don't lose stem cells, and the other one becomes a skin cell and sends it to your cut so that it can be repaired. And that's why it takes such a long time for cuts to heal, is because a stem cell is having to divide and send the new cell out to the correct location where it can then grow and repair. Same thing happens if you damage your liver or you tear a muscle. Those neighboring cells have to send a signal that says, hey, we need more cells. So where can you find stem cells? Well, there are two types of stem cells. First, you have embryonic stem cells. They can only be found in an embryo. Now, these stem cells can only be found 4 to 5 days after the egg is fertilized. Once the egg implants in the lining of the uterus, they undergo a little bit of a change, and they are no longer embryonic stem cells. They become adult stem cells, okay? So the moment the egg and sperm unite, that very first cell, that becomes an embryonic stem cell. And then the embryo starts to develop. So one cell turns into 2, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, 8 into 16, 16 into 32, 32 into 64, and so on and so forth. And as long as those cells, even as they're dividing, as long as they don't implant in the lining of the uterus, then they are embryonic stem cells. And embryonic stem cells have the ability to become literally every single type of cell in that organism's body, any type of cell. But once those cells implant in the lining of the uterus, they attach to the mom, they undergo a little bit of a change, and they turn into adult stem cells, okay? Which means they lose a little bit of the ability to become anything. Now they can't become absolutely anything. They can only become a subset of cell types. So we need to be able to compare embryonic stem cells and adult stem cells. Embryonic stem cells only exist for a very, very short time, right after fertilization, up until the cells actually attach to the uterus. Now, these are called pluripotent, also known as omnipotent, okay? Pluripotent or omnipotent. They can turn into anything. They can turn into skin, hair, heart, liver, intestines, blood cells, absolutely anything. Once those cells attach to the uterus, they turn into adult stem cells, okay? That means they lose the ability to be pluripotent and they become what's called multipotent. That means they can still turn into a few different cell types, but now they can't turn into all of them. Each one has the ability to turn into just a certain subset. For example, there's a subset that they can only turn into red blood cells or the different types of white blood cells, but that's it. They can't turn into muscle, they can't turn into brain, they can only turn into the different types of blood or bone cells, and that's it. Then there's this other cell that is also multipotent, but it can't become blood cells. It can only become the different types of nerve cells, okay? So if you don't understand this, please call me over and ask me to explain it in further detail, because it's very important that you understand the difference between embryonic and adult stem cells, okay? Then, as you grow, your adult stem cells will turn into differentiated cells, and a grown-up cell that has a specific job, okay? Now, every single one of your cells still has 100% of your DNA. So it still has the coding to be all the different types of cells, but it will only use the portion of your DNA that gives it its specific instructions. So a muscle cell will only use the little section of DNA that describes how to be a muscle cell. It still has the DNA that says how to be a brain cell and how to be a blood cell and how to be a liver cell, but it only listens to the part of the DNA that says, here's how to be a muscle cell. Same thing for your liver cells. They have 100% of your DNA. They have the same DNA as the muscle cell, but it reads a different section of the DNA. It reads the section that says, hey, here's how to be a liver cell. Okay? When a cell differentiates, it undergoes a big change. It changes its shape to do its special job. For example, sperm cells are really tiny. They lose all of the organelles except for the little bit of DNA and a few mitochondria, and it grows a flagellum so that it can swim. Egg cells, on the other hand, become very, very big. They get lots of extra organelles, lots of extra nutrients, lots of extra cytoplasm, because they're getting ready to make an entire baby, so they need all that extra nutrition. Blood cells will lose their nucleus because that makes them really flexible so that they can fit inside of all your little capillaries and not get clogged. They'll also get a whole bunch of protein called hemoglobin, which is what attaches oxygen and lets you carry oxygen throughout the body. Okay? Every single cell goes through a different process to become different, to become specialized. But the main things you need to remember about a differentiated cell is that it has 100% of your DNA and it only uses a portion of it. It changes its shape, and it can either gain or lose organelles to help it with its job. Again, if you want to call me over so I can tell you about a couple of different cell types, please do so. I'll be happy to tell you about them.